In the final part of my three-part demonstration, I'm going to demonstrate how to enable Key Archival on a Server 2016 Certification Authority. I've already set up a standalone REIT Certification Authority in Part 1. I've then configured an Enterprise Subordinate Certification Authority in Part 2. This third part is just to demonstrate one of the new features of certification authorities that was introduced in Server 2012 R2. On my Enterprise Subordinate Certification Authority, if I look at my list of currently available certificate templates, there are the default certificate templates which come shipped when you install Server 2016 as a certification authority. The Key Recovery Agent certificate that I require to be designated as a Key Recovery Agent, you'll notice, is not in this list. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is manage the list of available certificate templates that this certification authority can issue. And from this list, I'm going to take the Key Recovery Agent certificate there and just look at its properties. And you can see that the certificate is a version 2 or schema version 2 certificate. And on the permissions for that particular template, the domain admins group have read and enroll permission. So I need to be a Key Recovery Agent to enable Key Archival. So I'm going to right click in my certificate templates and say I want to make a new certificate template available to issue. And I'm going to choose the Key Recovery Agent template. Now I have the certificate template available. My domain administrator account is going to enroll for the Key Recovery Agent certificate. So I'm going to add in the certificate snap-in to an MMC console for my current user account. I'm going to drill down into personal certificates, right click and say I wish to request a new certificate. And I'm going to choose the Key Recovery Agent certificate from the list of available templates. Now you'll notice when I've enrolled for that, the enrollment status is set to pending. A certificate manager must go to the pending request container there, check the details of the request to make sure that it is a suitable request. So Key Recovery Agent request has come from the Harkit administrator in this case. And if I'm happy with that, I can right click and say I want to issue the Key Recovery Agent certificate to my administrative account. Now that's done, my certification authority needs to be told that there is a Key Recovery Agent. So if I go to the properties of my certification authority and select Recovery Agents from the list, I'm going to say I want to enable archival of keys. I'm going to add in the certificate for my Key Recovery Agent. So I can see a series of certificates there. If I choose the administrator one at the bottom and click OK, or just view its certificate properties, I can see that's the Key Recovery Agent certificate I've just enrolled for. So the administrator account there is now listed as the Key Recovery Agent for my certification authority. If I click OK, I just need to then restart the service. So that has enabled the Key Archival functionality. The next thing I need to do is actually configure Key Archival on a certificate template. Now at the moment you'll see on my certification authority I have the basic EFS certificate listed. I'm going to remove that from my list of available certificate templates because I'm going to replace that with the certificate version of that that has Key Archival enabled. So if I just manage my certificate templates again, and I go to the basic EFS certificate, I can right click that template and say I wish to duplicate it. I'm going to bring it up to at least a 2012 R2 version. I'm going to choose 2016 for both client and Windows 10 as well. On the general tab there, I'm going to call this Harkit EFS certificate. And on the request handling tab, I'm going to enable the archival of the subject's encryption private key. Then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back to my certification authority and say I want to make that new certificate template available to issue. I'm going to choose the new improved version of the EFS certificate. To test the Key Archival functionality, I've now logged into a Windows 10 client machine as a standard domain user. I'm going to enroll for an EFS certificate from my certification authority. So as we saw before, I'm going to add the certificate snap-in for my current user account. If if I right click and say I want to enroll for a new certificate, my HARC EFS certificate should be available. So if I enroll for that, that's been issued to me. And if I browse to my C drive, this user is going to perform encryption of some data. So I'm going to encrypt this folder. So on its properties, click Advanced and select Encrypt the contents to secure the data. I'm then going to go into that folder. I'm going to create a file called Secret. And as you can see, this user has no problem at all opening, saving and working with that document. If I look at the properties of that file and select the Advanced tab again and select Details, I can see the thumbprint of the certificate that's actually been used to perform that encryption. You can see it's the certificate with the thumbprint beginning 58AC. If I just go back to my certificates container again, just double click on that certificate, scroll down to the bottom, look at its thumbprint, you'll see that also begins 58AC. So this is the certificate that's being used during the encryption and decryption of data on my machine. So to simulate a catastrophic failure, I'm going to accidentally delete my EFS certificate. Now if I just sign out and sign back in again, and I attempt to open that file, I should find I get an access is denied message because I no longer have the certificate and the corresponding private key that allows me to decrypt that information. So I've signed back in. If I double click on the secret file, I now have a message telling me I don't have permission to open this file. Now this has happened of course because I no longer have the corresponding certificate on my local machine. So the process for recovering a certificate, should this happen, is simply a case of going to the certification authority and looking through the list of issued certificates and finding the certificate corresponding to the user whose private key has gone missing. And you can see there the certificate that was issued to Richard there for the purpose of EFS encryption. I've got the certificate's serial number there, so if I open that certificate, go to Details, highlight serial number and copy that string of text, I'm going to need that serial number to perform the recovery of the certificate. So I'm going to run a certutil command. I'm going to use the get key command, and I've pasted the serial number of the certificate in there, and I'm going to output that encrypted version of the key into a file called output blob on my local hard drive. So it's telling me that the key has been retrieved from the certificate services database, but it hasn't yet been recovered. What I've got now is an encrypted version of Richard's private key stored in a file called output blob. So the next thing I need to do as the key recovery agent is make sure that my key recovery agent's private key is available to me on this server. To do that, I'm going to go to my list of issued certificates and find the certificate that was issued to my key recovery agent, which is this one here. I'm going to say I want to copy that to a file. I'm going to copy that onto my desktop of my machine. I'm going to call that KRA cert. In other words, I need to make the key recovery agent's key available to me to actually decrypt other users' private keys. So if I now install the KRA cert on my local computer, I should now, from the command line, certutil-recover key from the file output blob. I'm going to put that into a file called richard.pfx. It's going to ask me to password protect the file, so I'm going to enter a password and confirm it. And if I type dir now, I should see a copy of the recovered key. So what I'm going to do next is copy that across the network. So I'm going to connect to the machine via its IP address. I'm going to copy the PFX file from this machine to the IP address my client. Just paste that on the root to the C drive. I would then contact Richard and tell him that he has a copy of his private key that he needs to install on his machine. So if I browse to the C drive and double click on that certificate, the user will need to provide the password, which of course I'd tell the user over the phone. Click next, next, and finish. And if that's worked, my user should now be able to open the top secret document. And if I look back at the user's certification store or certificate store, you should see the recovered EFS certificate, which my key recovery agent has just pulled from the certificate services database and decrypted for the user. This concludes my three-part demonstration of the certification authority, in which I've built a standalone root certification authority with an enterprise subordinate. I've then enabled key recovery agent and demonstrated recovering a user's private key using a key recovery agent. Any questions, please leave comments below.